So, we were talking about that, what fatherhood means from a Christian lens, and I think one of the things that's critically important in that is that prayer life. And so prayer has been crucially important in my household. And it's interesting because my children have always just been prayerful. So we taught them to pray at an early age. Obviously, when you're young, you start with the traditional bedtime prayers and things of that nature. But then we also encourage them to pray about specific things and be prayerful. And so, I've really been proud to see my kids grow up knowing how to pray. And it's funny because I think I tend to lead the prayer effort in my household, but sometimes, my wife is just as important in that role because, say we're hitting the road, my wife will say, hold up now, we didn't pray before we hit the road. So it's good to have a partner, and it's good to have a household where you all think that prayer is necessary and an important part of your day. But I'd love to hear what your brothers think about prayer in the household.
One of the things that moved me often is a song. And I'll pray for you and you pray for me and we'll watch God change things. And so that kind of stays with me all the time. My wife is a prayer warrior, so she's, just really into it. But what we do is when we get together, when we get ready to leave, as you stated, and when we get ready to do anything, if the children is going somewhere, we always bring prayer into the conversation. And we're just praying for health. We're praying for success. We're praying for just well-being. And we just do that to encourage the children. And we've started that, again, from a very early age with the kids. Now, my wife and I, we're both empty nesters now. One of the great things about that is the kids will always call us. We are having fun. But, the kids will call, they will ask for prayer. And we'll pray for them. If they're getting ready to go into a tough situation, they'll ask, can you pray for me?
That's strong.
And so it's just been really powerful from that standpoint. But again, I'm like you. I have to attribute a lot of that to my wife because of where she's been and her prayerful life. So.
Yeah. Well, when you pray, it's just we know that prayer works.
Yeah, all the time.
We're actually doing it for a purpose, and then it just feeds into the children seeing, Jason and I are part of a prayer group that gets together every Tuesday morning at 5:45 in the morning to pray, and we started this group saying we needed to be intentional about our prayer, and as men in the household that we had to get up early before our family was up, focus on the Lord, and have Him to meet us at all of our areas of need. And that thing started just, I don't know, we might have fed off of the prayer call that we were doing at church, but for some reason it's just been going on for 6 years, and I think that's because we see the benefit of that and what it's been doing in all of our lives. When we have job opportunities, we're in prayer. When one of our family members is sick, we're in prayer. And what do you know? God never fails us in that situation, and it seems as a result of us spending focused time with the Lord.
That's powerful.
I have to admit, that's aspirational for me, to be more consistent about being prayerful. I mean, certainly we bring the kids to church, grace food. In fact, even when the children express fear, the dark, thunderstorms, whatever, say a prayer. You remember what you learned in church. But to your point, though, being intentional and making it become a habit is something I need to do a better job of. And interestingly, I grew up in the church. My grandmother, my goodness, when we go spend time at my grandmother's house, you have to know Bible verse. There was morning prayer, there was evening prayer, there was prayer before church, all the time. And my mother was the same way. And so I don't know that I'll be like my mother or grandmother, but I certainly need to be more intentional with my prayer life at home. Yeah. And that's and to your point, it does work. I mean, there've been times where dark clouds have been over the house, and we've prayed about it, and we've gotten through it because of prayer.
Right.
So it does work. making it a habit, I think, is what I'm aspiring to.
Yeah, so I think in our household, both my wife and I pray consistently to ourselves alone.
Yeah.
We need to do a better job of praying together as a family, because I see the benefit in that. So if my daughter's going out and she's driving the car, I will pray. And I'm sure my wife is praying somewhere else or some other time versus us as mom and dad praying together, because I think there's another layer, right?
Yeah.
Of prayer when you're praying with one another.
Absolutely.
Right.
So I think we need to do a better job of that. So that's one of my to-dos.
One of the things that I always do with folks, my wife and I have the privilege of leading the marriage ministry here, is to talk about people praying. Because if you're getting ready to move into a matrimonial situation and marriage and all of that, you got to learn to pray. And so one of the things I'll always do is I'll say to the group is that I'm going to pick someone to pray. So what I want you to understand is don't worry about what you say, just pray.
Yeah.
Just say what's on your mind and in your heart. I tell them all the time, we will never ever pray like Pastor Wiley, but you don't have to. You don't have to.
That's good.
And it just kind of get folks into that flow.
That's good. I mean, what's funny is we think of ourselves as men, we're strong, we can go out there and fight the world and all that stuff. But a lot of times the sisters outdo us in the prayer.
Oh, yes. Yes.
So it's funny, I'm very familiar with your recommendations relative to prayer and marriage, and we fall short of that all the time. I mean, it ebbs and flows. We come off of the marriage retreat, and we're spending our 15 minutes worth of FaceTime. We're praying together. We're praying with the kids before we walk out the door in the morning, and then you get in your routine, and
Absolutely.
slowly but surely the prayer life diminishes, and you're not spending as much time as you need to in the Word and all of that stuff, and then you start to see it representing itself in ways that you don't want to see it representing itself. And so then you get back on it. But like Jason said, it's just this consistency piece of what you look for.
Yeah, so how does prayer be part of the routine? Right, everyone has a routine, right? You wake up, you get your cup of coffee, you get in the car, you drive to work. Why can't prayer be in there? Maybe I'm asking for myself, right?
Well, it takes 21 days, they say, to make a habit, right?
days.
Something like that. It takes practice, just like anything else. I mean, you got to get comfortable doing it, number one. And then, again, as you continue to do it and as you see the results, I think it's just like anything else in life. You experiment with stuff. You're doing something, it's going perfectly well, and you try to do something else, and then it doesn't work out. I mean, I think we need to have these experiences in life where we see when we try to do stuff on our own, God knock you upside your head and get you back over. But I think, as we just continue to move forward, and what's important is things like this, like, having accountability partners. I tell this to my children all the time. You got to be careful who you attach yourself to as friend. Make sure that they're bringing something to the table as well. And I'm very fortunate to have a village, a group of friends that are just, like I said, equally yoked. Have a prayer life. We'll tell you if you're doing something you're not supposed to be doing, even if it's uncomfortable. And I just think the more time that you spend doing it, just like anything else, it just becomes natural. And then you also need it. There are good habits, Prayer is one of those things that we need. And so the more you do it, the more comfortable you get, the more that it just becomes a natural part of your life, the more you come to understand that you need it. That's how I think it becomes routine. But you do have to be intentional about it, at least at the beginning, I think.
Just like shooting a jump shot.
There you go.
Just got to practice. Routine, right? Repetition.
That was your problem, why your jumper was a little
So I'm going to just say, I'll pray for you, and you pray for me, and we'll watch God change that.
Yeah, I like that.
And so what does prayer do when you're in the state of prayer? You're making yourself vulnerable, right? And so when you tie that to fatherhood and the beginning of our conversation and being a model to our children, being vulnerable enough to say I love you to a male child and hug him and kiss him, right? Not just the female, right? And you know, this notion of manhood being macho and, you know, strong and, you know, never shed a tear, never shed blood. You know, we know that's not the deal. I mean, some folks go in the room and do that, but when you can do that with your children, with your wife, and be vulnerable, I think that's part of the journey, to be more prayerful and be more genuine, frankly, right? Because at the end of the day, if you're able to be vulnerable with your children, I think the example someone was saying, your daughter will look for that characteristic in a potential partner, friend.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the same thing with your son.
Yeah. I think you touched on something, though, Brother Siafa. Like, as black men, we're always fighting against this thing that, you know, we don't want to look weak.
Right.
And I think a lot of brothers think, you know, prayer is, you know, that's kind of weakish, you know.
The women.
Yeah, to get up there in front of everybody, like, even if you're at work, and to bow your head when you're at a work function and pray, you know, that's a powerful statement. But it takes some guts. You know, you gotta be comfortable in your Christianity to be praying and to be out there with that. Because I think a lot of brothers, you know, don't view that as, you know, you being a strong man or whatever it is, whatever foolishness people come up with in their mind. But those are things that we just fight against as African American men. We're always fighting against these different stigmas. And quite often we're harming ourselves by just not
Absolutely.
doing what we're supposed to be doing, and not worrying about whether someone thinks it's weak, that, you know, you're shedding a tear, or that you're praying with your children or what have you.
And even with each other, right? I know you all have a friendship that, you know, goes back many years, but oftentimes you don't find that brother you can be comfortable enough with to share something really intimate.
Absolutely.
Because, you know, you don't know what's going to come back or how it's going to be viewed. A safe space, right? Where you can bare your soul and not be judged. That's something a lot of us are seeking, or maybe we just found later in life. But I think it's important to find and cleave to it. So that
Brother Kwame said it earlier with regards to finding an accountability person that you can reach out to and kind of share stuff with at the same time, and someone who will keep you accountable. One of the things I love you said, Brother Siafa, is telling your male children that you love them. And I find myself always, when I speak with my son, I will always tell him I love him.
Absolutely.
You know, and he'll return that to me.
Fatherhood for me brings a emotion of just pure happiness. When my daughter was born, I had the biggest smile in the world. When my daughter started walking, I had the biggest smile in the world. And I can keep on going on in all the milestones that she's achieved. And she's 18 now, so you can only imagine how many smiles I've had. But it's just pure happiness for me. It's the best thing that's happened in my life, is being a dad, period.
I like that.
For me, in addition to happiness, is pride, immense pride. When you can watch your children come into themselves, and discover something new about themselves, and achieve on their own, right? And come share that with you. It's just the fact that you've been able to plant the seed for someone who's kind of growing up and doing things on their own. It's just immense pride that you had a small part to play in that success of that child.
That's good. That's good. For me, I would say fatherhood would be gratitude, and I am just so grateful to have the opportunity to raise the children that I have, and to see where they are in their adult life now, and how they are now sharing that with their own children going forward. So it would be, you know, just grateful.
Yeah, fatherhood for me, if I'm going to think of one emotion or adjective, I mean, it's all of the things that you all just stated. But I think of persistence for some reason. You know, I just think of when you're being a dad and just never giving up on your child, no matter what the circumstances are. You know, I think about the tough conversations I have with my son, and going back to the room and being frustrated, and me and my wife just saying, man, what's going on? Going to our knees in prayer, and then just getting right back up on it and saying, okay, that conversation didn't work well. That's why I always ask God to give me the words. Don't let them be my words. Let them be something that my son or my daughter will hear when I'm talking to them. Don't let it be coming from me. So I would just want to be persistent and just continue to seek the best way to parent my children. You know.
That is good. That is good. Love all of that.
Yeah. But I agree. I mean, if Jason hadn't went first, I'd probably would say, you know, just pure joy.
Yeah.
You know,
When
you don't know what that emotion is until you become a father.
Yeah.
I mean, it is unbelievable. The roller coaster of emotions that you go through as a parent. But at the end of the day, even through the difficult times, the difficult conversations, the hard-headedness, the great accomplishments, it's all enjoyable because you know you're just pouring into something that's just gonna go out in the world and do something.
I have I'm gonna date myself a little bit, but roots had come out and you know, Kuta Kinte and, you know, raising them up to the ancestors. And when my child was born, I was in the delivery room and I was standing near the doctor and I was adjusting the mirror and everything, and he was kind of looking at me real strange and everything, but I was just there and cutting the umbilical cord and just, you know, that whole, you know, that joyful spirit of, you know, legacy to the ancestors. It was phenomenal.
No doubt. That ties in kind of the African piece that we haven't really touched on. And Brother Siafa, you talked about traveling a lot, and you know, I spent some time in Africa. My parents actually met in Africa.
Okay.
And you know, what's interesting in African culture, you know, family is everything.
Yeah.
And you know, everybody was Baba. So you Baba, and then the first child's name. So folks referred to my dad as Baba Kwame.
Okay.
So that's a powerful thing to me, how the African culture thinks about family is a direct correlation between how this child is going to turn out based on the father. Your existence once you become a parent is you're the father of Kwame.
Yeah.
You're not just you anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, that is your role. So, you know, I think about that all the time, and I just think about, you know, this village I had growing up. We had friends that my parents had met in Africa that happened to live in Boston with us, the Moses and the Milners, and we got together for Kwanzaa, and we did everything together. You know, I didn't kind of have this experience of this broken black family, even though my parents were separated. We just had so many good people in our lives that were just doing great things, and it was all about family. We just got together all the time, and the kids played together. We grew up together. We're still friends to this day, and more like brothers and sisters than friends. And I think that's that African influence on, you know, just parenting and family, which I think is such a good foundation to be able to have.
And I grew up in the South, and so that whole concept of family and it takes a village was profound with that, because everybody in the neighborhood knew who you were.
Right.
You know, they helped to guide and lead, and you know, Eric, we know your family, so if you mess up, I'm gonna spank you and then send you home.
You get two pieces of this. Definitely.
So phenomenal from that standpoint.
It's a question for you, Brother Eric. I mean, growing up in that village, did you look at your friends' dads and kind of take some how to be a father from them?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, you had no other opportunity. You had no choice but to look at that and see that and glean from that and help you to move forward. I have to share this with you because it's funny as heck, and my children told me many years later that I messed them up. When my parents would get ready to leave, they would always tell me, we're going down the street to see a man about a horse. So I thought it was pretty cool. I would tell my children that, and then many years later they said, Dad, you know you messed us up because every time you left, we thought we were going to get a horse. So I eventually ended up buying a little small horse.
Where does that statement come from?
I don't know, but it was, you know. So I see them now with my grandchildren doing the same thing.
Yeah.
You know, now I pulled the grandchild over and said, "Don't believe that."
No, that's a good question, Smitty, because, you know, I remember going to friends' households, right? And I remember specifically, and I don't know if it's a black versus other, you know, ethnicity thing, but I remember going to some of my white friends' house and just listening to how they were talking to their parents.
Oh yeah.
And my mouth was on the floor, man. And I'm thinking, bro, I don't know how you were still walking. So, you know, that observation piece is interesting, and I think, again, I'm grateful that I had a bunch of positive, you know, male role models as fathers, you know, and again, they would all pour into you.
Absolutely.
And you know, you're gonna get 5 different conversations.
Yeah.
And my kids have that experience. They're gonna get Uncle Jason.
Yeah.
They're gonna get my dad. I mean, at Christmas, my kids, when they were small, this used to kill them. But my dad was gonna break out. Before you open in the gift, we got Bible verses to read. Obviously, we're gonna read about the birth of Jesus. But then each person is gonna have to pick a Bible verse and read from it, and we're gonna talk from it a bit. And it used to be like torture for them. but now that's just their expectation, and they know we're not doing nothing about no gifts till we get into this word real quick and talk about what Christmas is really about. And I think that's the piece you're talking about, just that example of, you know, what positive fatherhood looks like. And I think that's missing a lot of times in our black community.
Yeah, and I think one of the elements that I think we're talking about it when I saying it is respect. Right? I had this conversation with my son the other day, and I shared with him this story about this at a job I had. A sales representative came, and my colleague really laid into him. And about years later, I went to interview at the salesman's company. He remembered me, and he told me how great he was doing. And what I got from that was that what was said to him was hurtful. It really hurt him. Not what he said, but how he was spoken to. And what I said to my son is you'll always remember how you felt when somebody said something to you, and not necessarily remember what they say. So always be careful about the way you speak to people. And so that's one of the examples of fatherhood, right? Showing respect, even to folks who might be rude or disrespectful to you, right? And it might be tough. You know, you just gotta sometimes say, okay, I'll let you go with that and move on. You know, don't take yourself down to that level. And if your kids see that, then they'll maybe learn something from that too.
And that's part of that Christian belief and faith in trying to, like you said, just kind of keep yourself in a certain position and not necessarily lower yourself to that level. It's hard sometimes, and that's why, you know, getting back to prayer, you know, Lord, help me put the right words in my mouth before I reach over here and pop.
Sometimes that prayer is forgiveness. You didn't make it.
Forgive me.
You didn't get there in time. You know. And sometimes it's like you want to, let me park my Christianity for a second and deal with this person.
Yeah.
I'll be back.
You're right. Brother Siafa, whatever you're doing with your children though, man, they are some respectful kids.
Yeah.
So I know a lot of times, and I hear this from my friends all the time, you know, they always, oh man, Elijah, Ava, they're great. You know, I had a great conversation with Elijah. And I'm like, Elijah? Okay.
That's my
really. But you know, you don't see it a lot of times because we're so in that parenthood, which unfortunately tends to focus on the negative a little bit more than it should. So you talking about remembering a conversation. I mean, I think it's important to have this balance between positive and negative interactions because we want our children to be so great. We usually focus on when they make a mistake and correcting that mistake. Do we spend enough time giving them that positive feedback? I mean, I heard from a keynote speaker one time, it takes like 6 or 10 positive comments to 1 negative comment for that person to feel like they're getting an equal amount of feedback. So that really stuck with me. That was interesting. And I said, you know, I spend a lot of time, you know, on my kids. You need to do this, you need to do that. but am I pouring into them with all that positive,
Yeah.
like you said, the love
Yeah.
and that as well. So
I was so proficient in using diapers.
Oh my God.
So proficient in using diapers.
Using it?
you
Well,
know what a brother
no.
says. Hey Jason, you know what a brother says.
Exactly.
So-
You know exactly what that
So
was.
again, I was the oldest coming up. So when my young,
training.
so I had to learn how to do that, and it was during a period when there were cloth diapers
Okay.
and pins and things.
Yeah.
Oh, I was good.
You were good.
Oh, I was good.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna tell you where I was good / not good was the hair, the daughter's hair thing. That's where I often went left. And I thought I was, I got really good at the single ponytail. But if I tried to mix it up, boy,
Doing too much.
I'm doing too much. I was gonna hear from my wife. One time I thought it was cute to send Ava out with this afro look, because she had her hair done, and then when you took it out, it was just poofy. And I said, oh yeah, that's cute. Man, my wife almost killed me, bro. She said, don't ever have my daughter out here looking like that again. I'm like,
I did the Afro puff.
I like the afro puffs, man.
Two with the beret.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That was my go-to.
Well, what about you?
So my daughter didn't sleep well in the beginning. So she would wake up 4 or 5 times in the middle of the night. And then, my wife would look at me like, I can't get up. So I'd get up and we'd sit on the couch. I'd turn on, ESPN, and then I'd wake up because I fell asleep. Don't tell me. And she done slid down. And I'm looking around. Anyone? I'm good.
Boy,
So she could talk. She'd be like, last night, Dad dropped me, bro.
yeah, no question.
But that's interesting because I could take my children and put them on my desk, on my chest, and not move, and we would be out.
Oh yeah, you get some good sleep.
You make me
Now.
feel bad, brother Eric.
No, I'm not trying to, but it was just interesting because I'm a really tough sleeper and moving and all of that, but I could put the children on my chest.
When you get that baby in there with the smell and just
That's the
they're on your
connection.
chest and the heat and the warmth, especially when they're new. Oh my goodness, boy.
Yeah.
You can conk out. And like you said, hopefully you wake up and then
They're still there.
they're still there.